thank you so much for staying with us on Liberty TV and, of course, on your favorite breakfast show, Liberty, this morning. Alright, so now it's time for our discussion segment. And today on our discussion segment, we're going to be talking about something that has been trending since last week when the president came out and said that and gave the CBN a directive saying that no penny should be given to anyone who wants to who is importing food into the country. That means there's a ban, putting a ban on Forex for the importation of food. All right, saying that we have actually gained, a reasonable amount of food security in the country. So we're going to be talking about that. And just of recent, about yesterday, um, from the presidency, it was also said that the presidency didn't stop everyone or didn't put a ban on food importation totally. He just told the CBN to not give anybody, but you can source for your forex from any institution at all to go ahead with the food importation if you're into that business. So we're going to be looking at that today and the effect of it, of course, on how if this should actually go on, how it's going to be the effect of it on inflation, on increase in food supplies, and of course the prices of food in Nigeria here. So we're going to be looking at all of that this morning, and of course we'll get to enlighten you more about the forex ban. So to do this morning with us this morning is Dangwa Abbas Danjuma. Of course, Dangwa Abbas Danjuma is from the Coalition of Association for Leadership, Empowerment and Development. Thank you so much for coming through
much.
this morning. And we are really, really happy to have you here this morning to discuss this Forex ban with us this morning. So, just to start this, on the Forex ban, let's have your own your own take. Let's have your own what you actually think about the directive given to the CBN about the forex ban. What's your own opinion about the forex ban coming from the president?
Okay. Well, first I want to thank you for having me here today, and I will say, you can remember years back we were struggling with having people really coming into the financial system. Financial inclusion was an issue for economy at a point in time, and it's still not as if we have actually gotten over that yet. Now we are in a situation where people are now getting this kind of abrupt statement coming so prompt. There is no kind of a co-creation process around it. So if I will give you again the illustration about the issue of financial inclusion, how Nigeria is still struggling with it, how most of the petty traders that we have do not have any care for a bank account and want to just keep their money where they can be able to access it. At the point in time when the banking financial system was talking about cashless banking, we had the challenge of how to migrate people who were so strictly dependent on coming to just cash their funds to begin to depend on electronic channels, to make transactions. You have also seen how it has taken us time as a nation to migrate people to having banker verification numbers. Now, all of these things, when you do them without that kind of a process, what you do is that you begin to send red flags. So naturally, people who don't want to enroll on banking platforms, you now tell them that they have to own ATM cards, and they feel that they have a deficiency in IT or digital literacy. They begin to pull back. Now, it is in the same light, I see what the central bank instruction is like. The money market we're talking about is not just the federal government's money. There is also the private sector's funds in there. And when you talk about your economy being big, it's about how many people are willing to actually put their resources there. So if the government comes up and say that these people who have money cannot be able to access foreign exchange for food imports, and now they are asking the government, we need to actually begin to talk about this, then there's really a problem. It's not a decision that is seen to be of sound practices across the world. So, and it is definitely not something that can work very well with Nigeria as well.
So if for you think it has to come with a whole lot of processes before we can actually, bring that, to the forefront. You can't just wake up one morning and just decide to give a directive and
Yeah.
think that it's all going to be rosy.
Yes, because if you look at the central banks of Nigeria and like other central banks and Federal Reserve, like you call it in other nations, is something is an institution that is designed to be independent.
Independent.
So you are talking about market systems,
Mm.
and the market systems are dictated by they say demand and supply and all that. But here we are coming up with a directive and order. You now from the media should also be asking questions like what is the economic intelligence that is built around this decision, and if we begin to narrow down on that, you will understand that such a kind of act and action that undermines the independence of our institutions
Yeah.
automatically can really get this nation to a halt at a point in time.
All right. Now he also talked about having food security to a very large extent. Have food security. So that's one of the reasons he's saying he actually gave that directive. But do you think we have actually achieved that that height of of security? To actually put a ban on forex, because we have a whole lot of people who depend on bringing in food for their own consumption. You
Yeah.
have people who are depending on that, bringing in food for their own businesses. That is
Yeah.
how they get their own funds to go about their days activities or paying bills and all of that. And you're saying we have attained food security in the country. How valuable or how true is that statement?
Well, you have to go back to look at what the statistics, what data do we have about nutrition. You have to look at how many farmers do we have that actually cultivated crops last year or participated in one kind of agri venture or the other last year that are actually willing to do so now. And if you are saying food security is the basis of it, you have to ask yourself how many people are really finding agriculture attractive. You have not gone around to say let's look at the issues that are around the farmer. For about 4 to 5 years now, we've had the CBN-led Anchor Borrowers Program. How many reports have you seen about performances? How many reports have you seen about the sufficiency in terms of food items that really constitute to saying that we are not just having food, but Nigerians are having the right kind of nutrition that they are looking for. So if you look at all of those indices, then you will be compelled to say that it is actually a make-believe kind of a statement. I do not think that, for one, do not think that is actually grounded on fact. This ban, for instance, will have actually been an exciting news to farmers if only their own issues had been taken care of. If right now you actually have to look at what are the real issues for the farmer. If the farmer has the capacity in Nigeria today to produce at par with every other person that is actually doing whatever he is doing here elsewhere, then you could say we're actually getting to that point of food sufficiency. But as it is today, our farmers are actually having problems around even the seeds, quality seeds. Our farmers are having challenges around mechanization. Our farmers are having, just look at the budget itself at federal and at state level, how much vote is actually going to agriculture. How much vote is actually going to agriculture even at state levels? So if you see these indices, you will be asking the right questions about there are other things that the farmers will actually need to do to be able to produce more, so that we will stop or reduce our dependence on food imports. And I think that is the kind of approach that we need to do. You shouldn't be taking a headache to combat bacterial infection. That's it basically.
All right, because when you look at Nigeria now, you have a whole lot of people who cannot even afford 3 square meals. A whole lot of people who would find it very hard to actually get basic meals as small as, or let me say, as little as having what to just keep them together. And then you bring up such issues, and at the end of the day, you have it in affecting food prices. Now, how does that relate to a common man? For somebody who finds it hard to eat 3 times a day, would have to struggle so hard to get money to feed himself or his family, and then you're putting this. How do you think that's gonna, affect inflation generally?
Well, it has happened before. Bread is no more the price that it used to be,
Yeah, sure.
and currently now we're actually looking at a ban that can actually change the prices of tomato paste. It can change the price of how much you get curry. It can change how much you get thyme. It can change how much you get milk. So the the effect at the end of the day, the person who is going to be feeling this heat
More.
is the citizen, and in this case the poorest of the poor, because people who can afford to will continue to enjoy some of this product, buy at large quantities, minimize uh, the price levels for themselves in some way, cost saving measure. But for the ones who are actually dependent on those sachets and everything, is actually something that is going to hit hard eventually. So it is not good that government pushes a policy and then is seen to be somersaulting backwards over it. These kind of inconsistencies are things that people interested in business are actually going to be looking at. Every now and then you have to look at the economic analysis, the political analysis, the social analysis. All these things affect your credit rating. So if we have a situation where at any given point in time somebody just comes out and can say this and that to an institution, and then the institution is also even seen to be saying to the whole world that we are going to drive this policy, it's really unfortunate.
Really. All right, now let's look at the parts of smuggling. Now, on a very normal day, we're still struggling with, smuggling activities going around in our porous borders. You have a whole lot of things that are coming in without even being checked, and sometimes we just get to find them in the market.
Yeah.
Now, the government is just trying to fight that, to see that it comes down to the minimal, parts possible.
Yeah.
And now, then you have this ban going. Don't you think it's gonna, inflate, or probably how we have more of the goods being smuggled in?
Well, it is something that is ongoing already. With the level of unemployment and underemployment in
Yeah.
this country, there are people who are even employed that are interested in smuggling. And then you're also looking at a very vast unemployed population, and who, no matter how stringent you bring up the penalties, they are willing to take the risks. So you are looking at a very underpoliced nation. Every now and then, when we look at how much, we're even scared about the figures of how much we actually need to invest in our security. So the issue of smuggling is already something that we're even
We were
witnessing
dealing with,
already. We're
yeah.
dealing with. Most of the fabrics now in Nigeria are coming from West African nations. And then you have people who are still bringing in rice. No matter how much we say our rice production is actually at par with domestic consumption, we're still having problems around importation of rice, the ones that are importing legally and even the ones that are smuggling it in. So the situation just tells you that the coast is actually being enlarged now. There are commodities that were not attractive in the time past that are going to become very attractive now for smugglers, because that is the only way some people can be able to feed and make ends meet.
Sure. All right. Well, hopefully we get to see that, we get to a point where we don't hear so much about smuggling, of food items. All right. Now let's talk about as it is right now, this time when you have so many things that are wrong, so many things are not going right, in this country. You talked about the agricultural sector, you talked about the economy and all of that. Now, what use is the ban at this particular moment when you have so many things that are not actually going the way it's supposed to be? Because you mentioned quite a good number of things that, if they were set straight, then probably, this could actually work. So bringing it at this particular point, is there a need for it?
Well, candidly, the real Forex challenge that we will have been trying to deal with should have been the fuel subsidy thing. the fuel subsidy is clearly showing how much we are bleeding our currency as a naira, the naira, in the market value. The importation is astronomically too high. It is a burden that is too much to bear on our currency. So if government was taking very strong stand around looking at subsidy, because this fuel subsidy at the point in time, we were made to believe that it is no more, that what we are going to be seeing now are price adjustments, but it is still hitting hard on our foreign exchange. Now, when you look at the issue of bans, zero forex should not include the things that actually help in improving livelihoods and all that. We should actually focus more on the things that are actually things that we're supposed to get out of. The fuel subsidy has been one that we have been trying to work around as a nation for so long now. And so these are the areas that government should take the bull by the horn, so to say. As far as I know, I believe that government should actually look inwards, work together with citizens. Citizens are interested to work. Sure. Citizens want to make Nigeria work. And you have seen it in terms of how they go around in pushing towards agriculture. People go to agriculture. When they get burnt, they want to come out and not want to be involved in it. Look at the entire things about kidnapping and whatnot. The people who are being targeted mostly have been farmers. So if farmers are having issues, I think government needs to actually have that kind of round table where we sit together, say this is what we did, this is what actually needs to work, and then let us have things happening that improves our level of productivity. Once our level of productivity improved, naturally imports drops. Imports drops, exports grow, and that is when we actually have the gains in more foreign exchange. But as it is today, government trying to behave as if it's the only player in the economy is actually something that is counterproductive.
All right, now talking about things we get to exports, do you think that we're doing pretty much well in that area, or we really need to do more in terms of exporting some of the food items? Since from the presidency, we have, well, according to him, we have attained some level of food security. What do you think about the exporting food, or do you think we still need to feed our nation first of all before we even go ahead for exporting? Well, that could actually lead to the increase in forex.
There is actually so much that we produce that is beyond local consumption. There is so much that we produce that is beyond local consumption. Cassava, for instance, is beyond our local consumption. We are producing it at that quantity that you can say it's actually an export commodity. But is that all that there is to it? What about the standards? Are we meeting the global food standards? Are the food we produce here in Nigeria really attractive in the international market? If they are not, what do we need to do? That is the reason why I say going and hitting around forex and thinking that by way of forex production will improve here at the local primary industries, it's not going to happen. What will make it happen is if the incentives that are supposed to be there are actually working. As it is today, I will defer that they are working, because like I said earlier, we have had an economic recovery growth plan. That was the budget plan that we have had in Nigeria under the first administration of President Muhammadu Buhari, mostly. And when you look at that, you will think that there should be a harnessing, a reorganization of all government cost centers towards harnessing our GDP. By and large, when you talk about diversification of economy, you are just going to be looking around agriculture, maybe the extractive industry that is non-oil dependent, and then you are also supposed to be looking at services and in nearest future technology. But we are not having all of this, at play with what we are doing. Agriculture is suffering. The mining extractive industry is not getting any kind of response. our own manufacturing sector is largely dependent on imports for raw materials. So when you have that kind of situation, it's something to lament, honestly. So if government is actually going to be doing anything around forex, I think we should be rather mindful of the fact that we got to recession because foreign direct investment either withdrew from Nigeria or at a point in time ceased completely. And if that is the situation, we cannot be seen doing the same things that actually send out red flags to investors and expecting that our economy will blossom or grow.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and we really appreciate you for coming through this morning and giving us more, telling us more on the forex ban that was a directive that was given last week. Now, for me, I just got from this interview that a whole lot of things have to come to play.
Exactly.
A whole lot of sectors have to be up and doing
Exactly.
before we can actually say yes, we have attained the height of ban on forex,
Yeah.
to have things coming. So we should be able to have our agriculture sector working. We
Yes.
should have our manufacturing sector working.
Yeah.
We should have almost everything in place. I mean, you talked about oil. Right now we're still exporting and importing
Crude.
oil,
Exporting
oil.
crude oil
Exporting
and
crude
importing petroleum products.
we are still at that point. I mean, so it's not really a realizable a thing right
Yeah,
now to
yeah.
actually have the forex ban, but hopefully we get to see that the government gets to go through with decisions that would affect even the common man on the streets, or the woman selling akara, the woman who is there trading and all of that, because at the end of the day they feel the impact.
Needless to even say that there might even be job losses if this thing protracts.
True, and that would lead to more of the smuggling activities
Yes.
we are trying to deal with at the moment. All right, well, thank you so much, Mr. Dangwa Abbas Danjuma, for coming through. We
Thank
really
you.
do appreciate you for coming through and enlightening us more on the forex ban. And he is from the Coalition of Association for Leadership and Empowerment, and
There is peace. There
development.
is peace before the
There's peace
empowerment.
before the empowerment. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Well, thank you. We appreciate you for coming through. Hopefully, we have you more often to discuss on some of these national issues as they come to go through. All right, our viewers, thank you so much for being there. Join us again tomorrow morning for another fresh episode of the Breakfast Show Liberty this morning. As of now, do have yourselves a beautiful day ahead, and of course, a very productive day ahead. My name is Rose Yusuf. Stay with us. Coming up at 8 with the news. So stay with us.
Liberty, oh liberty.